If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely.
This demonic screams from these scum when one of their own is attacked, when their protests, BLM and Antifa, are the protests of these people. When their protesters are protesting for their preferred political candidates and against someone like a President Trump. I watched it happen at the White House as monstrous assaults took place against Secret Service. White House buildings were burned to the ground. Churches were set ablaze. Cops were beaten. All manner of projectiles were hurled. Secret Service sent like 60 agents to the hospital. A mob descended on the White House in America as a result of the George Floyd protest. I saw it because I was standing there with my own 2 eyeballs and a camera, damn it. Don't tell me this didn't happen. What happened when the police pushed that violent mob back? They didn't disband them, they just pushed them off White House grounds because they were torching and burning and assaulting cops. What happened? The press screamed. The press wailed and cried and wept sulfur tears over the fact that the police pushed back just a little bit on what they called peaceful protesters. Lie. That the police cleared the park when these protesters were burning and pillaging and looting and smashing and lighting on fire buildings at the White House. To our great shame as a nation and as an administration, Antifa and BLM were allowed to burn and pillage with impunity around our country for months on end. People like Kyle Rittenhouse were abandoned. Those who stood up had no defenders. It's shameful. Now you're watching the reverse happen in Canada, where peaceful protesters, Indigenous elders, reporters are getting abused, shot at, trampled, their bones snapped in the street by a Gestapo force, stormtroopers of a regime, acting with no legal or moral authority, and now our corporate press are silent. Morality is a rock, day and night, in lightness and in dark. Truth, if you have it, is immovable. There is the truth. There is not your truth or my truth. It is immovable. If you are a moral person, then you will say that attacking reporters is wrong. If you believe that Trump attacked reporters with his words and you screamed about it and cried about it and sued over it and wrote books about it, and you are silent when reporters are being shot in the street in Canada, then you are not a moral person. You are simply a muppet, a sock, a hollow, despicable person who is attempting to lick the jackboots of a regime because they defend or represent your preferred political perspective. I saw virtually no one in our corporate press, no blue checks on social media, defending Canadian reporters, telling their story. It's despicable. In fact, they squealed with delight as a peaceful protest was crushed because they are virtue signalers. A virtue signaler is somebody who signals virtue and has none. They don't have virtue. They simply signal that they have virtue. They say they defend, they wrap themselves in our founding documents with one arm while shredding them with the other, pushing them into a shredder with one hand and wrapping themselves in the other. When it's convenient to say you're for freedom of the press, great. You will see the likes of CNN reporters and NBC reporters, Jim Acosta, Brian Stelter, clinging to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the founding documents. But as soon as reporters are telling stories that seek to strip them of their power, well, those documents go into the shredder. These people are scum. And if you wished to know how far the Canadian authorities are going to take this brutality and this crackdown, do we have a clip for you? The Ottawa police chief said, if you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. The investigation will go on for months to come. You best start believing in fascistic dictatorships in the West because you're in one. Clip 6, go.
I'm from independent media. So I was in the crowd yesterday. I was unfortunately hit with some pepper spray. I just have a question. There's some video cameras that the police are using and some news outlets are reporting that you're gathering intelligence with those cameras. Can you elaborate, like, if the protesters at this point retreat and go home, are they going to be getting sort of repercussions down the road? Or are you going to be sort of actively pursuing the people that you've been sort of documenting and filming who are still out there protesting? What are your plans after this, after the protest is over?
Thank you. It's a great question. And the simple answer is yes. If you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. Absolutely. This investigation will go on for months to come. It has many, many different streams, both from a federal financial level, from a provincial licensing level, from a criminal code level, from a municipal breach of court order, breach of court injunction level. It will be a complicated and time-consuming investigation that will go on for a period of time. You have my commitment that that investigation will continue, and we will hold people accountable for taking our streets over.
And could I just ask one more question?
Can we ask a question to Mr.
This
Aida?
concludes the media availability. Ceci conclut le point de presse. Merci.
So few read their history books. So few understand that the most dangerous force inside of Soviet Russia for 80 years under communist rule was a police force known as the NKVD. That's an acronym for a Russian word I cannot pronounce. This was Stalin's private police force. This was a uniformed police force that acted as a terror group, a terrorist cell, that made people so scared that they were called the merchants of death by the Russian people. If you heard a knock at your door in the middle of the night from the NKVD, no doubt you will never see your family again. There didn't need to be charges. There didn't need to be a court date. There was no due process. You were gone. What was your crime? Maybe you bought the wrong apple. Maybe you said the wrong thing over coffee. Maybe you did nothing. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, in Soviet Russia, starvation was seen as a protest. Stalin took all the grain from Ukraine. The people starved. And the starving was made illegal. They had no food. They could do nothing but starve. But in Stalin's Russia, starving was seen as an act of protest. And so those people who were starving were lifted off the ground and sent to camps. This is how tyranny works. If you attended a peaceful and legal protest, now the authorities will hunt you down. If you are starving because Justin Trudeau, Castro Jr., Joseph Stalin took your grain and left you with nothing but rocks and dirt and ashes, and you're starving, well, that's not a good look for the state. So we will now remove you. Fascistic states always fuse with corrupt, oath-breaking agents of law enforcement to issue in a reign of terror. So you best start believing in fascistic dictatorships in the West. Canada, you're living in one, and America, be advised, they want to bring this to our shores. This is a dry run. It's a trial run. To show you exactly how evil the Canadian police forces are, the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is what that stands for. RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, leaked messages show that these sick, oath-breaking, bloodlust Rangers were delighted at crushing little skulls of Indigenous women. They were delighted at smashing the phones and the heels of reporters. They got off on it. Sick people. Time for the protesters to hear our jackboots on the ground. Leaked messages from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police show the bloodlust in their hearts. Ottawa is currently on crackdown, writes Rebel News, as peaceful protesters are being brutally forced backward from their protesting, peaceful, legal encampments. The police were giddy about this action and their horrific crimes against humanity. In what appear to be authentic screenshots from the Mounted Police musical ride team currently in Ottawa to assist on the crackdown of peaceful protesters, members brag about using brutal force. Over the last 24 hours in Ottawa, police have deployed pepper spray canisters on demonstrators, arrested dozens, and trampled 2 people with horses. In the chat, the police member, Andrew Nixon, sends a picture of a pint of beer, hoping for his chance to abuse protesters. Don't kick them all out until next week's group gets our turn. Member Robin Philbott remarks about the accommodations police have been given in Ottawa. Nice downtown in Chateau Laurier. That's right, a fancy, fancy hotel. Nixon jokes about police brutality. Time for the protesters to hear about our jackboots on the ground. After being admonished for his remarks, Nixon mocks the protesters. Okay, we can give out free hugs and unicorn stickers. Nope. They gave out batons to the skull, shots to the ankles and shins of reporters, and knocking over small handicapped women from native tribes. A member named Marcia laughs off the prior night's trampling of 2 demonstrators, one which had a mobility scooter. We just watched the horse video. That is awesome. We should practice that maneuver. The police are getting off on abusing you. They're getting off on it. The human condition is not complex. The Nuremberg defense is now famous psychologically as civilized, advanced, Christian, German people went barking mad and became mass murderers in the name of the state. The state gave them the authority to murder, to kill, and to brutalize. And there's a flip of a switch that happens inside of a low information person. The flip of the switch is well studied psychologically. You can find studies about brutality and harm in the name of an authority in some shocking studies. I do not have them before me. But it's been well studied and documented that there is a propensity in the human condition to follow directives, to follow authority, even if that authority means cruelty and harm to others. People will blindly follow what they are told. You saw it happen throughout the coronavirus pandemic. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I do not, with impunity, back the blue. I also do not, with impunity, back the authorities of our medical establishment. All human beings can be corrupted. That's the nature of humanity. That is why police officers swear an allegiance to virtues, to values, not to institutions or to political parties. Stalin's NKVD swore allegiance to a specific leader, a political party, and they became the Gestapo agents of that said party. The sole and singular party of the Soviet states. That is where evil comes from. There are oath breakers in the ranks of Canadian officers. They should be stripped of their badges. They should hang their head in shame. They should be publicly named. The officers who committed brutality. Those who did not walk directly off the jobs. The Ottawa chief of police resigned. I personally believe, this is my opinion, that he wouldn't give the order. He wouldn't do it. He knew what was going to happen, and he left because he couldn't do it. If that is the case, then he has lived up to his badge. You cannot state that I support all doctors, that I support all members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that I support all cops, because humans are fallible. And the human beings who can be manipulated or have a weak moral core will do what we've seen in this country. Assault little children at Burger King in New York for not having their vax pass. Little kid going into Burger King in order to get his Happy Meal, his little trinket with his chicken nuggets and fries. And a police agent of the NYPD walks up to that child, shakes him, and says, "Where's your vaccine pass? Get out. Show me your papers." It's how you lose your country. We've been covering Canada nonstop. The reason why is not because I'm Canadian. I'm not. I've only been to Canada, I think, once or twice. I think I've been to Canada 2 times. A very long time ago. I haven't been to Canada in a very long time. I like Canada. We cover Canada because what's happening there is evil. It's wrong, obviously. We cover Canada because Canada is a test case. It's a trial run for what they want to do here. They wish to do the same thing here. The capital in Canada is now getting gated up. Big walls around it, just like what happened to the capital in America. These are test runs, trial runs. They wish to institute this type of dictatorship here in this country, and they're figuring out how to do it. They're getting information, data, and tactics on how to crush peaceful dissent in all westernized countries. They've been figuring this out in China for the last 30 years. The people who fetishize the Chinese model, which is all global leaders right now, trained and operational through the World Economic Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, it's what Canada is what happens when the World Economic Fund runs your country like a prison camp. They must silence dissent to get what they want. They're going to try it here in America. Mark my words. Timestamp this video. They're going to try it here in America. Will we withstand it? Will we be awake enough? That is the question. Your civil liberties mean nothing unless there is force to protect you. Your civil liberties are nothing but a piece of parchment on a paper, which we have proven demonstrably on this show can be shredded at the first sign of inconvenience by the authorities. That's what's happening in Canada. It will happen here in America. Unless we fight back.